Joining me now here on the Knicks Film School Podcast, a fellow pregame show host in the Knicks content creation world, a fellow New York Jets fan that I cannot wait to talk about and our tempered expectations or maybe non-tempered expectations about this season. And just a good fellow of mine who he said it on Knicks Fan TV, so I think I can say it on here as well. He and his wife are expecting a new addition to the Knicks family in the not too distant future. Alex Trataros of Knicks Fan TV. Alex, how you doing, buddy? How's your summer going?
Andrew, my man, thank you for asking me to be on here. I feel great, man. Yes, enjoying the last solidarity. Like there's not too many days left at this point. Due dates September 9th. So like there's a little bit of time left for me to do whatever the hell I feel like doing. Me and my wife having our alone time, whatever. So just been enjoying it, man. You know, especially after this past Knicks season, just living on highs for a little bit. You know, even the way it ended was a little disappointing, but still just enjoying my summer, man. Got back into running a little bit, just trying to get in shape for the little man that's on the way. So that way I can be healthy for him. So that way, because here's a little fun story between for everyone listening and tuning in right now. Every time my wife and I were watching a sports game, whether it's the NBA playoffs, whether it's watching old Usain Bolt highlights, whether it's watching like tennis, no matter what, you could talk about baseball, even watching sports documentaries. Our son is just active. Like every time he hears a sports game, he is just active inside her belly. So you just see him kicking, punching. He's like, "Oh, I love this. I love hearing." Like she listens to podcasts, she listens to shows, she watches her rom-coms, her trash reality TV shows like The Bachelor and whatnot. But baby boy's not moving. He's chilling. You know, he's relaxing, sleeping, doing whatever. But you put sports on, he's going. We were watching the LeBron James documentary, the Shooting Stars, right? And 10 minutes in, he's already rocking and moving. So, you know, I know he's an active baby. So sports in the future. So I've got to get into shape for this little guy who's going to be in the world just running about all over the place. So that's been my summer. But how have you been, man?
I mean, I've had a pretty busy summer myself.
You did, man. Congratulations to you and getting married.
Thank you, sir. And I got to say, it's not necessarily new because like we lived together beforehand, but it's like married life suits me is what I've been telling people. It's fun to go from fiance to husband or fiance to wife. So that's been good. For those who I guess missed the intro or didn't understand the intro, Alex and his wife are expecting a child in like any minute now. So I'm happy that I can get you on before the due date so that we can talk about basketball and other New York sports things before that happens. But best of luck to you and best wishes to the Trataros family. I feel like I'm meeting my counterpart, but in the same spirit, like you and I have texted and DM'd before about potential guests that we're both going after when we're doing our pregame shows. Yep. And this season, I feels like I saw a lot more of Alex on Knicks Fan TV. And like, obviously, you and I have connected in the past on your old show, Knicks, Jets, etc., with John. And that was always our connection that we talk a little Knicks, but I'm really here to talk about the Jets. And we're going to talk about the Knicks, Jets, etc. here on the show. But this year that you had, both like personally and then just from a fan's perspective, you know, how you feeling after the year that you just had? Both like the steps forward you took with Knicks Fan TV and as well as, you know, the success of the team coinciding with it.
Well, first, you know, it's funny that you talk about doing pregame shows. It's hilarious. Like you mentioned that. I was like, oh yeah, well, we both do pregame shows. Yeah. Like before that, it's like it's been so long of an offseason. I'm like, I'm getting ready to gear back up for the pregame shows and all that stuff as well as, you know, it's just funny. Like I just think about some of those texts. It's like, hey, you getting this guy on? Hey, are you getting this guy on? Let's make sure not to double book. Let's
especially during the Heat series in particular. And it was like, okay,
the Heat series was real. Yeah, exactly. The Heat series was really tough. But yeah, man, like for KFTV, it's been great, man. It's a lot going on over there. And, you know, shout out to CP, man. Awesome mentor, awesome person, just in general. You've spoken with him before. I know you've hung out with him before. And like really just gave me like the runway just to grow and threw me into this opportunity, man. And it's just been great over at KFTV, outside of being, just a co-host, being an analyst for post-game show and doing pre-game shows. It's like I also run the website too. So we've also been growing that as well. So looking for new writers and so forth, and just reviewing all those, writing samples and, drafting a writer's guideline and stuff like that behind the scenes. So it's been good, man. Like the role is just continue to grow, as man, through doing KFS. Like it's just every year it's like, what else can we add new? What else can we do different? Like how can we make this even better than what we did before? Not only for like the content we're doing, so like as a pregame show, but like how do we expand our reach too, as as a content creator? So it's been great this past season just for KFTV, and I loved every moment of it. I think the fun things I do is like when I actually go to the games and do like the meetups and actually create Instagram reels. That's like the more fun that I have, because then I get to be that fan and actually like enjoy the game and like forget the analysis, man. I'm ready to like it's like, you got to be like a little bit more like reserved to some extent, like try to be as real as you can when you analyze this team. But then when I'm at the game, I'm doing that type of stuff. It's like, let's go. Like I would swearing, whatnot. So it's fun. And after this year, man, it's like, it's for the Knicks being in the playoffs 2 out of the past 3 seasons. It's just been great. And having the addition of Jalen Brunson and him being the guy that led them to like the next round, going to the second round of the playoffs. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it didn't end the way that we wanted to. I still like just hate the Miami Heat, man. Like they're so close, like talent wise, like we had a man. It's just, we're talking about things that could have probably been adjusted, like from a coaching standpoint, effort standpoint, execution standpoint. And who knows, maybe we're there in that Eastern Conference Finals instead of them. But honestly, like when you're away from it for a little bit and you get to look back, it was still a magical season that the Knicks had.
So I'm going to go back through that, because the experience of it as a fan, while we're still doing like the content thing, which like has its own responsibilities, I don't think the word limitations is right, but there is like a certain level we have to go to where we're not thinking like a fan. We're trying to think critically about the team, which is why we do this thing called Playback with the folks over at Playback. That's where I feel like I can let loose a little more and actually experience things in the moment. Yep. Like I was on Playback for the Julius Randle game winner against the Heat. Remember when that happened, when we loved how Julius Randle performed against the Miami Heat? And that moment is relived every now and then when I go to our Instagram and see that Playback clip. And it's like, that was like being able to have it captured that way was one of the highlights of the past season that we had. But then you go through the playoffs and man, I'm back and forth on how disappointing the Heat series was. And I don't know if you feel this, but I'm doing everything to try and remember how the end of the Cavs series felt. And the series, like I thought the Knicks had a good chance to win, but the way they dominated that series, specifically it being the Donovan Mitchell Bowl. And it's like, oh, so they didn't trade for Donovan Mitchell and then they knocked his team out in 5 games. Like I'm trying to hold on to that feeling more so than the disappointment of the Heat series. Have you had any balance of that at all? Have you tried to balance that at all, where it's like, let's not forget this team was an underdog and everybody outside of the Knicks world was picking against them in the Cavs series and they destroyed them in that series?
It's tough, man, because I look at that series and it's just, I look at the team for what it was during the regular season, everything that we did right? Second chance opportunities, really attacking well in isolation, rebounding. Once, they went to the 9-man rotation, the defense decided to, take it up another level, another notch. And you add the addition of Josh Hart and you remove Deuce McBride and it really took another level. So I look at that team and I'm like, that's the team that we saw throughout the regular season. That's the team that was gritty, that would punch you in the mouth, smash mouth basketball, and the team that we grew to love it towards like the end of the season, especially once Josh Hart joined. And I remember that team. I'm like, that team is a good team. It's not a bad team. It's a very good team. But then the thing that I think when I review the playoffs, it's like you get the reality check when you go against the Miami Heat and what more work this team needs, whether that be adding another player, the limitations that it has offensively, right? Like switching Josh Hart in the starting rotation over Quentin Grimes and shortening the floor spacing on the court, that really changed the trajectory of this team, right? And why wouldn't Tibbs trust Quentin Grimes, who was already having the toughest assignment throughout the regular season, right? Why not give him that opportunity to guard Jimmy Butler? And then, we think about Game 5 and he has that great stop against Jimmy Butler. Like, trust the young guy, man. Just let him go out there, do his thing. Even though he's coming off a shoulder injury that he faced in the Cavs, it's like, do that. But I look at these playoffs and I'm like, that team still needs more work. As good as this team is, right? It still needs more work, and like an offensive creativity standpoint, a shooting perspective. Like, hopefully we get that with Dante DiVincenzo. Hopefully Grimes and Quickly could take another step up, as well as RJ. But then you also look at the Julius Randle situation, right? Because 2 playoffs now, he's underperformed, and you're like, this guy during the regular season, and it's like, what's going on, man? What's going on?
I got to be honest, Alex. I go to the Julius Randle situation significantly more than the Josh Hart subbing for. Like, that is a thing.
Oh, for sure.
I've acknowledged that. Like the on-off splits for the Josh Hart starting 5 and the Quentin Grimes starting 5. Just, they say you should not have split them. I understood what Tibbs was trying to do, but Game 3 is the one I go to. It's like, all right, you tried this, it did not work, which is why I think we went back to the Quentin Grimes starting lineup in Game 4. But from Game 4 on, like, you needed your all-NBA player to play like an all-NBA player. And I thought you saw in Game 4 and then in Game 5 that we're at a point where Julius Randle does not need to play. Julius Randle is part of the reason why they're going to lose the series, if they lose the series. And for me, the biggest reason why they lost this series. If he plays like his B+ game or even his B- game, I think they're at least able to get it to a Game 7. But Game 5, like, I thought he wasn't coming back in the game in that second quarter. It was after the way that first quarter went, because they went on that 18-2 run to erase that 10-point deficit in the first quarter. And it was very clear, okay, that they're swinging the ball around more. They're playing with pace. They're actually taking advantage of Miami. And then they were able to build a lead. I more go to the Julius Randle margin than I do the Tibbs margin. It is a margin, don't get me wrong. But it's why I think this team's, like you said, in an interesting place where it's clear they have room to get better and need to get better. The way they shot the entire playoffs also shows why they probably focused on the addition of DiVincenzo over bringing back Obi, or honestly just dumping Obi for nothing and then trading and going and getting DiVincenzo to replace him. I don't know. It's the Josh Hart thing is so fascinating. And I wanted to honestly have a conversation with you from a KFTV perspective. I think he's so impactful. Like, all he does is affect winning. All he does is lead to winning. Mm-hmm. And you see what's going on with Team USA, where Steve Kerr, like acknowledged by, I'm sure, everybody in the Knicks fan base and a lot of the NBA as one of the best coaches in the sport, is choosing to put him in the starting 5 over Brandon Ingram. And all he talks about are these glowing reviews of all the good things Josh Hart does. And then it's so counteractive when you go to our fan base and it's like, why are you starting Josh Hart, you idiot? And it's like, okay, it's not I understood the hard place he was in, because I'm sure Tibbs sees the same thing Steve Kerr does.
For sure.
But the playoffs RJ had, it's like, well, I can't bench RJ. And so he tried to double up and it just didn't work out. Above anything else in as far as topics and complaints and what people come to the KFTV phone lines and airwaves with, is it the Josh Hart starting 5? Is it Tibbs coaching decisions? Is it a player that they're trying to get run out of town? Like, what's the number one hot button issue that they come to you guys with?
Oh my God, the number one hot. I mean, it could be all over the place, Andrew.
Is it equal all over the place?
I don't.
That's the question I have.
It depends on who you're talking to and like what you see in the chat, and I think it's tough. It's tough to really isolate. I think there's a couple, like, depending on the type of day and who you're listening to, it could be a Tom Thibodeau issue, like coaching creativity, right? And like, I agree with you. Like, it's more of a Randle thing than it is, a Tom Thibodeau thing. Although I do think Tom Thibodeau, like, we're reaching the point of his ceiling with what he can do with this team, because I think there needs to be a little bit more offensive juice creatively in order to take this to another level.
I just also think he can be more creative. He picked an offense that during the regular season was extremely effective. The ceiling it hit was in the second round of the playoffs against a coach that knew how to stop it,
But that's the thing. Like you're going to run into other coaches who are like a Steve Kerr, who are like, a Ty Lue, who are like, and Eric Spoelstra, who's going to be able to do that, right? Even a Mike Malone. So it's like, can you take your thinking and your creativity to another level? But when you talk about who's calling in and what, it's oh, well, it's Tibbs, man. We need another coach. Let's go check out Johnny Bryant. Or it's like, oh, get Julius Randle out of here. And he's not that dude anymore, man. It's like, oh, why are we paying Josh Hart? How are we going to keep Emmanuel quickly? It's all over the place, man. There's not really one particular thing I could say. I think there's so many topics, that can go amongst the Knicks fan base. You know about it. You go just log on Twitter, go on Facebook, go on anywhere, go on Instagram. You see the whole conversation that it can go haywire. We have supporters for Julius. We have people against Julius. We have people for Tom Thibodeau. We have people against Tom Thibodeau. It's just all over the place, man. On
they're supporters of Tom Thibodeau. I have no idea what you're referring to.
Yo, don't even.
I know.
Jay from Puerto Rico, if you're listening, man. This guy is like, I said Tom Thibodeau would like coaches get replaced for others. Like we're talking about Doug Collins for like Phil Jackson, right? And he was like, Tibbs is not the issue, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, so we got a Tom Thibodeau supporter. And they're out there, man. Look, Macri's a Tibbs supporter.
That's what I was saying, Alex. I wasn't talking about Jake from Puerto Rico. I was talking about John from Brooklyn. Is what I was talking.
John from Brooklyn. Waiting for John from Brooklyn to call in to say Tibbs should not be fired.
Yeah. And look, I gotta be honest. I struggle because there are things he does that infuriates me and drives me like. I was with everybody.
I don't know if you're talking about Tibbs or Randle at this point.
No, I was talking about Macri. No, I was talking about Tibbs. Specifically talking about Tibbs here. But like, it's funny that you said I don't know who I'm talking about, Tibbs or Randle, because the Tibbs things that infuriate me, I'm able to counteract with the Tibbs things that I love. Like, this team always plays hard, is always ready to play, is usually well prepared, which is why Game 3 was such an uncharacteristic game from them. Like, getting blown out and barely being able to score, like do anything on offense was such a frustrating realization of how badly they were getting outplayed and outcoached. But like, they still fought back in the series. And I get like the Heat were an 8 seed. That just was not an 8 seed by the time they got to the Knicks series, They had Tibbs' game plan was like, I'm going to let anybody but Jimmy Butler beat me after Jimmy Butler destroyed the Milwaukee Bucks. And then Max Strus and Caleb Martin and Kevin Love and Kyle Lowry all beat the Knicks. Like, it was actually a collective effort after that. So I'm able to at least appreciate the floor. And honestly, like, the Knicks haven't made the second round of the playoffs a ton. So I'm able to appreciate the ceiling that they're able to get to. You mentioned the coaches that they might run up against that he'll get out coached against. Well, like, Steve Kerr didn't make it to the third round of the playoffs this year. Tyler didn't make it to the second round of the playoffs this year, which then leads me to the Julius conversation. Like, you're as good as your best players are probably going to take you. And when your best player is turning into a pumpkin right before your eyes, that's not how many pivots that you have, unless like you're as creative as Spo, which I give Spo all the credit for. And, that kind of leads us to where we are now with this team, where I'm really excited about this season. Do you think that you're going to be able to enjoy the regular season? Do you think well, I'll ask you first. Do you think you'll be able to enjoy the regular season knowing that there's playoff aspirations on this team now?
Of course, man. I think, look, we're all fans at this point. Like, we can all enjoy the regular season as it comes. I think it depends on like the game, the matchup, how it all happens. Like, when you have games like you see Brunson just dropping Caruso and hitting game-winning threes, like you can get excited for that. If you're talking about, the Knicks beating the Bucks or something like that, or these top echelon teams, and it's like coming down to the wire and they're executing like good end of game plans. Sure, I can get excited about that because all those moments are going to lead towards the playoffs, and that's just getting you more repetitions to get ready for the playoffs, because that's probably what you're going to see. You're going to be facing a team for a minimum 4, max 7 games, and it's going to come down to execution more than anything else.
But you understand what I'm asking, like, because you've had a taste of playoffs.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Like, is a 52-win season going to mean something if they get bounced in the second round again? Like, are people going to be able to enjoy the journey? Which I guess it's more a question for the fan base, or if they're doing stuff if they're doing a similar type of offense that's like heavy offensive rebounding, not a ton of ball movement. Is everybody going to be like, great, this 20-point win was nice, but they're going to lose in the playoffs. This is shout out XJ. This is a rat fake offense, and I don't trust it in the playoffs. It's like, all right, like, can I enjoy regular season wins? Like, do you think this fan base will be able to do that?
I think if you get over 50 wins, I think you can. I think they can. I think you can get behind it. But to your point, and this is why. How many times have we seen the Knicks have 2 consecutive good seasons going into the playoffs? Like, oh wow, I can confidently say this team is at minimum a playoff caliber team. Like, we can get through the regular season. We know we're going to make the playoffs, right? You do that for 2 seasons in a row, then I could say for the 3rd season, it's like, all right, we know this. That's the expectation. Now it's how far can we make it? So if the Knicks make it to a 2nd round appearance, right? Again, depending on like where they position, who are they facing up against, how they get knocked out, or like that's all going to come into play. But I think another good season of the Knicks showing that they're a competitive team, that they're a playoff worthy caliber team. Yeah, you got like, look, man, I think if anything, we saw when Julius Randle had his first All-Star, All-NBA, MIP season, like the next season went downhill. Like we were all frustrated, angry for many reasons. And it's like, can this team bounce back? And then you get Jalen Brunson like, all right, so is this just a play-in team? Like, what's going to happen? And then we make it to the 2nd round and you're like, okay, nothing's ever guaranteed in the NBA. This is the most we've had with parity throughout the league. So if this team can 2 years consecutively be a legitimate playoff team, yeah, I think you can get behind it, because it's been a while since we've said, oh, look at this. Like the 90s, we got to go back all the way to the 90s where it's like, all right, we're making it to the playoffs. We know that. How far can we actually make it this time, right? We haven't had that for quite some time, except for a short stint with Mel, where it's like, this is going to be a playoff team 3 seasons, and then you go run into the Pacers, and then Roy Hibbert decides to have, a career of a lifetime during that series, and then fade out into oblivion. So like for the Knicks, like if you're a fan, it's 2 seasons in a row being consecutively good. Yeah, I can get behind that. I would say once it gets to the 3rd season after this one, then it's like, now I need to know what you can do, because at this point, like just making an appearance means nothing, right?
Especially if the way I think we both think the following off season's going to go, with players that may end up in a Knicks uniform, but that's another conversation. another project.
What do you think? Do you think the fans can get behind us, Andrew? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
So it's funny, I'm talking to someone from Knicks Fan TV on here about this specific topic. I think you and I can absolutely enjoy it, because we enjoy when let's have a real conversation here, Alex. It's good for business when the Knicks are good. So we will enjoy when the Knicks are winning games. A 50-win Knicks season is just a party that you want to be a part of. And I think like there's a lot of people in the content world that are really good at throwing said party, and I would like to attend said party. I think you'd know this better than anybody from 2 years ago. Like, everybody was kind of done with the season by the All-Star break. So the last 2 months of Knicks games was like a formality that it was like, all right, we got a post game tonight. I have no idea. I don't really want to talk about this team. Oh, great. Cam Johnson buzzer beater. It's looking forward to the tank. And we'd have like these 10 to 12 minutes of, oh, great, Obi's in. Oh, great, Quickly's in. It's like, oh, great, the lineup we wanted to see. And you get that comeback against the Heat. And it's a sign of what could be if the right rotation is put in place. And then we finally got it last year. And it's just been, rainbows and sunshine since then. I think a 50-win Knicks season, which has only happened once this century, will be able to be celebrated. I really do think that. And I think you read it right, that this is probably the last year where regular season success will be enjoyed, especially if they're about to do an all-in upgrade to the roster, like go all in for an Embiid. I'm on the fence about how serious the Giannis stuff is, but if the Giannis stuff is serious, then like that'll change everything. Like we are then just kind of on hold until the playoffs. There's also, and this is admittedly, I've curated my Twitter timeline to things I want to see. There are certain people that just are determined to be miserable about the Knicks and the way that they're run and how even though they have like a significantly young roster, they're one of the teams that have gotten better over the past couple of years, not gotten worse, which I think is the most fascinating part about the East rankings right now. I don't know how you feel, but the difference between now and 2 years ago when they had that 4 seed and then they lost to the Hawks, it was like, well, can it be replicated? You look at everybody else in the East. Like, I think the Cavs got better, but I have no clue if Boston got better because of them going all in on Porzingis and his health history. Milwaukee, I'm confident will be better. Miami, until they get Dame, I'm not sure if they're better than a 7 seed. The Sixers are a mess. Like Brooklyn, everybody gives them credit for like what they did after KD and Kyrie. They went 13-21. That's what they did after KD and Kyrie got traded. They're a playing team.
Yep.
Like the Knicks are one of these teams that got better or at least kept the core together, that it wouldn't shock me if they're a 4 seed or even a 3 seed next year. And I would hope that is a sign of progress to even the most negative of Knicks fans to be able to enjoy, like, oh my gosh, this team's headed to a first round series that they're going to host this year. So that's at least my hope for this season. I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Andrew. I think, and when you look at the East with how things have shaken out, like you can just write Philly off, right? There's no way, to me, anything that has happened is fixable. I mean, you have James Harden going out there and just calling Daryl Morey a liar, then getting fined for it. I don't know how that relationship is repaired. For Embiid, you got to be looking at that situation like, what can you even get for James Harden at this point, and how are you even making a competitive team? So that's why there's a whole watch on Embiid at this point, because Philly is just, you went from Ben Simmons to James Harden, 2 guys who continuously have choked in the playoffs. And I know Embiid's playoff history isn't great, but as we see, like with any team, like there's very few guys who are LeBron James who can legitimately carry a team on their back all the way to the finals. And for that, like Philly for me is like out. Bucks, they're going to be good. So I'm not a big believer in the Celtics, man. I think they lost like the heart and soul of that team once you traded Marcus Smart. Like defensive grittiness, like we're talking about like the longest tenured Celtic, okay? And there's I live out here in Boston, and it is split between how they feel about game winner Marcus Smart, where there's some fans who are like, oh, he was always chucking up shots at the last minute. It should have been Tatum or Brown, and there's some fans who are like, we lost an edge, man. Like he's that edge. And I'm like, from an outsider, like I don't trust Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum because none of them have showed me that true leadership where the ball is in their hands. Like they should have the last shot, but it never ended up in their hands because they didn't want the last shot. You know what I mean? Right. Smart's like, yo, it's me. I got this. I'm the only one with the cojones right now to go out there and do this. So let me go do it. So I don't believe in Boston. So it's like, I don't really think the Cavs got that much better. I think it's like status quo almost. Like they brought back LeVert, Georges Niang. Okay. Like you got Max Strus. All right. Like that's not really intimidating to me. I mean, the only way it's intimidating is Evan Mobley takes another leap forward in his development. That's what I have to see. Like him being that legitimate scorer, that would be like, all right, that's a legitimate team to be afraid of. But then everyone else in the East, like Pacers will be a fun team. I don't like the Bulls. I don't like the Hawks. Orlando's going to be spunky. Wizards are going to suck. Detroit is not even there yet. Like we keep running down the list. Like what other team is out there? So for you saying the Knicks could be a 3 or 4 seed, like it's very doable. Like you looking at like on paper right now, very doable. Like everyone has to stay healthy, and with their continuity, it's right there, man. It's right there for them.
So quick question. Does my mic sound better now?
It does.
Yes. So I'm going to take everybody behind the scenes because this goes back to last episode. So we had Ty Windish, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, who hosts the Gyro Step. I'm calling it Gyro Step. It's technically called the Euro Step, but it's spelled
Yep.
It's spelled Gyro Step, and that's what I'm calling it.
Man, the Greek heritage of me is getting a little hurt right now.
Fine, the Euro Step. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm a New Yorker and I can pronounce things however I want to pronounce things. My mic was not connected on that. So for any time I jumped on, it was the camera audio that everybody heard. And because I can't do a sound check on myself, I'm dependent on the person across from me. Now, I'm not getting at you for this. I'm more getting at Mr. Macri for this because he recognized it and didn't say anything. I wrote a Post-it that I didn't put in here, but what I put out there and was like, okay, put it in your office. So that way, when you're recording, you check your connection. So the reason now, everybody, that you hear an actually good microphone and not the bad audio from the first half hour of this interview is because even the best of executive producers have off days. And I had a bad first 30 minutes here. I apologize, everybody, for the horrific audio, but I love talking to Alex, regardless of what my audio sounds like in this capacity. So, Alex, we'll have a much better sounding podcast for the rest of the time going forward now that my mic is actually connected. Shout out to Shane, one of our patrons, who said, Claudio, how upset were you when you got into post and heard what your mic sounded like? And I was like, you have no idea. Well, Shane, we're going to have the exact same thing happen when I edit this thing later tonight. Anyway, I am excited about the Knicks' upcoming season, partly because when I look at the rest of the New York landscape, Alex, the Knicks are pretty up there for the power rankings of New York sports teams. And this transitions perfectly into what I want to talk to you about today. Because I do this every summer where it depends on who the person is that I like to talk about the entire New York sports landscape. Last year we did it with Schmeelk. We've done it with a couple other of the New York sports. Like we had a Yankee person on once just to see what the power ranking was of the 8 or 9 New York sports teams and who has the belt at the moment. Dare I say our New York football Jets have the belt at the moment, Alex, for better or for worse, because this could very easily go 7-10 again. And I'm looking up and it's like, oh my gosh, what happened to this season? This was supposed to be they're on Hard Knocks. They got Aaron Rodgers. I am so cautiously optimistic, but dare I start to dream, Alex? How are you doing with our football team at the moment?
Oh my God, Claudio, I think you said it perfectly, which is like, we've had the conversation too about, whether we want Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, like, how do we go after this? Like, we've had a full-on debate about this, and
you wanted Lamar, right?
I did want Lamar,
yeah.
But look, man, like, Rodgers is here. I'm a true Jets fan. How can I not just like throw on my fandom and just be like, all right, man, let's do this, let's go. Look, man, cautiously optimistic, man. And I don't know if it's just because, well, I do know what it is, because we're Jets fans and we just know that it could come slap us right in the face at any moment. Like when the Jets are underdogs, like for the most part, it's like, okay, that's when everything's good, right? It's like, same thing with the Knicks. When they're underdogs, everything's good. Once you start putting expectations on this team, although I feel like for this Knicks team, it's different just because you have Jalen Brunson at the helm. For the Jets and where they are right now with Aaron Rodgers, probably have him for 2 years. The rest of the team's really good and young. I'm like you. I'm cautiously optimistic just because the last time we got a Green Bay quarterback and what happened, it's like things started out great and then it went all downhill. So it's like, I just don't want history to repeat itself. That's one. Two, like I said, like just Jets fandom, like, we watched Mark Sanchez for those 2 seasons, like back-to-back AFC Championship appearances. And then going into that 3rd season with Mark Sanchez, we get Plaxico Burress, we get Derek Mason, Antonio Holmes is back. And then you think about, okay, this team is legitimately good. Then you put some expectations on it, right? You go Tannenbaum, Rex Ryan, go out and do the Jets thing, go out and get the big names, right? Of the offseason. On paper looks great. And then just falls flat in the face where it's like, we could have had a chance. Said we go 8-8. Right. And we lose in Miami. San Antonio Holmes gets benched. And I'm like, you know what, man? Like, this is, it's just like, it just burns. It's just salt in the wound. And what made it worse is that there was this Giants fan on my route for where I used to work. And he's like, the Jets, he always told me, he's like, the Giants are good. I don't know how he predicted this. He was like, the Giants are going to make the playoffs and they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. And the Jets are going to go 8-8. I was looking at this guy. I'm like, you're crazy, man. Like after last year, how is it even possible? The fact that it actually played out that way, like, I did not want to see this guy once the playoffs started. I was like, yo, I just like don't want to see. And he's like looking at me dead in the eye. It's like he had this vendetta against me because I was a Jets fan. I was like, look, man, just stop. Like it's like, and I was like 21 at the time. This guy was like I want to say he was like 57. And it's like, yo, what's going on here? Like, it's not even like, our peers at this point, just like our age group talking to one another, just shit talking. It's like legitimately someone's just looking at me just like, your team sucks. Like, you have no idea. I'm like, okay, man. And then for it to all play out like that, it was the most infuriating time. I just wanted to be under a rock. Didn't want to see this guy. I didn't want anything to do. Just didn't even want to go to work at that point. So I just think about those times as being a Jets fan. I'm like, please, for the love of God, let this work out for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, because there's a legitimate chance, as you said, for this team to be good.
So I don't want to speak for anybody, but there's a large debate in the KFS faculty at the moment, because the king of optimism himself, Mr. Mensa Smith, has been writing some checks on behalf of the New York Jets that I then unfortunately get roped into because I'm excited about the season. But he's said the S word, Super Bowl, a couple times. And while I'm excited about this season and think they'll be very good, and I'm not going to say they can't get to the Super Bowl, I think they're that good. I know the playoffs are kind of random, especially when there's a Mahomes and a Burrow and an Allen that you're going to have to get through in some way, shape, or form in the postseason. And the idea, again, of enjoying the journey is what I'm trying to stick to. Like, did you watch the Netflix series Quarterback? Where
yes.
So you have Mahomes, you have Kirk Cousins, and you have Mariota that they all followed for a full season. Well, Mariota for about 5 episodes, and then he Kirk Cousins and the Vikings went 13-4, hosted a playoff game, and then lost to the New York Giants.
Mm-hmm.
And I was we did our fantasy draft last night, our fantasy football draft for KFS last night, and I was saying, like, not knowing if I didn't know that they'd lose in the playoffs, would I sign up right now for 13-4, a division title and a home playoff berth, and then just play out the playoffs as it lies? Like, would I sign up for that right now? And I said, absolutely. And then, like, if you lose in the first round, would that erase what this season was? And I guess the better question is, would you sign up for just a 13-4? Would you sign up for the Viking season for last year? Because the journey would be outstanding. I think because know the destination, it's tough to say yes, but like going 13-4 and hosting a playoff game and winning the AFC East would just be like the most fun I've had probably ever watching Jets football. It'd be the best record they've ever have in my lifetime, or at least since I've been watching football,
For sure. No, and like, I think especially for what the Jets have been through for so long, Jets fans, like, yes, off the rip, you take that season, you're like 13-4 is great. You're winning essentially almost every damn week. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have probably home field advantage at that point for 13-4. It's just hard for me, if that was a destination, to then lose round one, because the thing is that we have Aaron Rodgers for 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's tough to say, all right, next year's going to do it, because next year's never promised, man. And especially if everyone's healthy, and that's the biggest thing in football is injuries. It's so hard for me to say I could accept that. And I think I'm on the fence about that, because for me, it's like, if you have Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback, and the team is like, I'm looking at that defensive line, man. You're talking about 8 deep that can go, like, the second unit could go be a starter on another team. That's how good the defensive line is. Then you think about, we got a solid secondary, especially at the cornerback position. Like, it's hard for me to say we got a really good team, especially when you look at the offense too, to say, yeah, 13-4 is great. If we make it to the playoffs, that's awesome. If we lose, all right, we had a great season, a great time. It's like, it's so short-lived.
So 2 things. First of all, as far as defensive line depth, like, you want to talk about how I processed how good this Jets defense and especially this front seven is going to be. Did you see the Bosa stuff going around on Twitter the other day? The Joey Bosa is apparently like, I didn't take too much of it seriously because it stemmed from a Reddit insider, and apologies to Reddit. You're not an insider. But like, it stemmed from there and made its way into the Jet Twitter world. And it was like, oh my gosh, Joey Bosa might be available in a trade, and that there's a prominent AFC team that might be making a trade for him in like the next 48 hours. and people were posting pictures of Robert Saleh when he was in San Francisco with Joey Bosa, and the idea of Quinnen Williams next to Joey Bosa. Not Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. That's right. Nick Bosa is the one in San Francisco. Regardless, my thought process was like, I think if I want to give up assets, I don't want, like, they don't need a defensive edge.
No,
like they have edge. Like they're fine on the edge. They're fine in the trenches. They're like, it's crazy to say you don't need a Bosa on your team, but like if there was a star offensive lineman or, you know, a wide receiver that plays for the Vegas Raiders that might be available in a trade, maybe then we're cooking. But I still, that's how I processed it. How deep the front seven is specifically in that defensive line room. Look, you said it, because you know the destination. It's impossible to be like, I'd sign up for that right now. I think because, like you said, the Rodgers of it all, the clock is kind of like these next 2 years have to result in some deep playoff runs. One that ends on the last NFL game of the season, whether they win or lose said game. It's similar to the Knicks, man, where I haven't seen a lot of deep playoff runs. At least the Knicks, I at least have some of the 90s I can point to and be like, yeah, I've seen my team play the last NBA game of the season.
Right.
The Jets, I've seen them play the second to last game of the NFL season a couple times, but I've never seen them play the actual last game of the season. And that goes with the guarding of expectations. I know I would enjoy the hell out of a 13-4 season. I know I would also be devastated if it ended in the first round, especially if it's to 10-7 team that I don't think is very good. No offense, Giant fans, but that leads perfectly, Alex, into the thing that we're about to do. So
let's go.
Who runs New York? That is a thing I do every summer. At least I try to do every summer, where we take an audit of the power rankings of the teams. But in this case, we're going to do the players of basically who, based on popularity, notoriety, talent, dominance, performance on and off the court, who runs New York. And I wanted to see how close our top 5 lists, or maybe even we'll see if we can get to 10, our top 10 lists would be. So let's start with number 1. I'm going Aaron Rodgers. I'm just all in that Aaron Rodgers currently runs New York. Is that a fair thing to say?
It's tough. I had 2 players. I had 2 players for this. But I think if you talk about the sport popularity, American, like American sport right there, right? Like one of the big 4, it's got to be football. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers, just because, well, the Yankees, the Mets have not held up their bargain. The Knicks, while they're a young and up and coming team, as much as I love Jalen Brunson, he's very young in his career and like becoming like, as being a star, potentially a superstar. I think he's a superstar right now based on his play. But for that, I think it's still too young. And then like the Liberty are killing it, man. Like the Liberty are doing a great job this season. And I'm looking at Breonna Stewart, and like she's actually the one who I would say could be number 1. But I think when I'm looking at it from like, you know, US standpoint, what people tune most of their eyes to, it is football. I gotta go with Aaron Rodgers, because he's just, as soon as he came to New York, man, he's showing up at Knicks games, Rangers games. He's all over the place, man. And then everyone's like, Aaron Rodgers is New York Jet. Look, I mean, we're on Hard Knocks, man. Like they were like, yo, you got Aaron Rodgers. We need this on Hard Knocks right now. Like 100%. So I gotta agree with you that it's Aaron Rodgers, man, just because the hype is there. Hopefully it all plays out.
So where do you go number 2?
Breonna Stewart.
So you go Stewart over Brunson. Because I have Stewie and I have Ionescu on my list, but I don't have him ahead of Jalen Brunson.
I think I'm going to give the respect to Breonna Stewart right now, just because, well, the Liberty are just killing it, man. She is leading in a lot of statistical categories for the Liberty. We're talking about scoring, rebounding, steals, blocks. She is just doing it all. The Liberty are second right now. They just won the Commissioner's Cup. They're a legit team, man. They're fighting against the Aces at this point and the Suns. So I'm going to go with Breonna Stewart, man, just because once she was signed, like we're talking about articles being written about a superstar team for the Liberty. So I'm going to go with her just because she's also been killing it.
I don't disagree. Believe me, every time I check the Liberty box score, it's just another monster night. For I think because of the Team USA of it all, and when you have someone being named captain that's getting attention and sound clips about them from someone like a Steve Kerr, I will go to Jalen Brunson with my number 2. And I guess I'm just an awful anti-feminist that I don't have Stewie at number 3 either, because I'm going with Aaron Judge at number 3.
Okay.
Because of the team that he plays for, because of the Yankees are such a fascinating thing to talk about. Notoriety is the thing that is part of the calculation here that I'm fascinated by. Because if you want to talk about the number 1 Yankee figure that not runs New York, but is like on the minds of New Yorkers when it comes to Yankees, it's Brian Cashman. And he's not like making this list because this list is more positive than negative.
I'm glad he's not making this list.
He's absolutely not. But like, man, I'm so back and forth because I do think he's done a good job, but I do not have a Yankee fan in my life that agrees with me on that. They're the number 1, and like, you're a Yankee fan, so I'm sure you could speak to it.
Look, I think it's so hard, man, because when you look at the Steinbrenners and you look at that family and like what he did with Jeter, you're talking about Posada, you're talking about oh my God, you're talking about
Pettit, you got Rivera, you got Bernie,
Bernie, you got so many guys, man, so many guys, and just like that core 4 Yankee team just will like live on in infamy, right? Even though it's really 5 because of all those guys we just talked about. And I just, at some point, someone's tenure has to end and let some fresh new ideas come in. I think the Yankees have just passed on like all the rule changes. Like, it's an old team. Like, they're not necessarily the most athletic with the new rule changes. So I'm looking at this team saying it needs some juice. Like, Aaron Judge is great. Garrett Cole, we're talking about Cy Young competition right now, man. The way he's performing this season, like one of the very few lone bright spots, if not the bright spot on the Yankees, even though when you talk about king in New York or face in New York for their franchise and teams, like, it is going to be Judge just because he's been here longer, got that contract extension. But it's like, there's just so much more that needs to be done to this team, man. Like, I just watch it. It's just so frustrating. And to see that when Judge was out due to a toe injury and that they can't figure out how to just stay water and just maintain and win without him. It's just, that's infuriating. That's terrible.
So this is why I have Aaron Judge so high. I think this would have been the case last year. Like, you look at that Yankee team, that just was not a good team after Aaron Judge.
Home run leader, man. Like, of course, you got to do that. Not
just even the home run leader, the home run record setter. And that, like, you want to talk about the value of what he did last year. I think last year's team was this year's team. And then Aaron Judge masked all of it because he was breaking Roger Maris's American League record. If he doesn't do that last season, I think that's like a 90-win team, an 85-win team. Like, if what happened to him this year happened last year, I think you would have seen all of the rot that exists in this franchise, and we would just have had this conversation or this fallout a year earlier. Look, I like poking at Yankee fans. They like poking back at Met fans.
I know.
it just is funny because of the standards that I think. Again, I would enjoy the hell out of a 100-win season, regardless of what happens.
It's tough, man. Look,
when you have Yankee expectations, and it's like, well, how does the season end? That's what matters.
Yeah. Yankee expectations are much different than a regular, I mean, talking about a sport with no cap, you can go out there and spend. We're talking about the wealthiest franchise out there in MLB. And it's like, you should be able to put together a contender, like, off the rip. And I know, like, we love to see like homegrown talent. Once again, going back to the 5 guys you just talked about, right? Especially the core 4, homegrown talent right there. But like, the fact that we're not even getting competent level of play at this point, like, come on, man. Like, we should be 5th we should not be 5th in the East. The AL East, we're 5th. Like, I'm behind Boston right now. Like, come on. Like, especially with the money that you spend, you have, come on. It's just not, it should not be happening. So that's why it's like, how are we having Garrett Cole, who's having a Cy Young year, and we can't even get him help, man? How come? You know what I mean? Like, this is where I'm like, something has to change at this point, like as a Yankee fan. But I agree with your list, by the way, just so that we don't get too far off track, because I can go. But
go ahead.
I would say though, with after Stewart, I'd probably go Judge and then Brunson. As much as I love Brunson, no, it's not even shade to Brunson at this point. I just think like he's still so young in his career, man. Like I'm really looking at that as like a young career for him being in New York. And like, I know people are going to love what he did. I love what he did, but I think if you're going to put like faces, like where they are, contracts and all that stuff, I'm going to go with Judge over Brunson. So Brunson would be 4 for me. Judge would be 3. You got Brianna at 2, and you got Aaron Rodgers at 1.
Can I convince you to put Jalen Brunson over Stewie? And to make it that to your 2, 3, 4. Can I try to convince you? Can I make the case?
You could.
Okay. Yeah. So the Aaron Rodgers pick at 1 is because he transcends New York. Like nationally, internationally, you know who Jalen Brunson is. You know who Aaron Rodgers is. Jalen Brunson, I believe, is the best player on the most popular team in New York. Now that can vary. New York can, when the Yankees are good, especially when they're making deep playoff runs, which hasn't happened in a while, can become a Yankee town, and it's like the pinstripes and yada, 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 and all the history and Babe Ruth and this and that. Like that can take over the entire city. I don't know how much it transcends New York though. Whereas I think Jalen Brunson being on the Knicks and what they did last year can transcend like internationally. I mean, you see it from Knicks Fan TV. I just wonder if you think about New York sports right now, the number 1 image is probably Aaron Rodgers. Is the number 2 image not Jalen Brunson?
I think that's a legitimate good case, especially with the FIBA World Cup and everything they noted. I just don't know how popular the FIBA World Cup is outside to basketball aficionados, right? Like how much is like your average fan tuning in and like hearing what Jalen Brunson's doing, like outside of like watching the Knicks, like who else is tuning into like the World Cup where you're like buying ESPN Plus or buying any of these other subscriptions to go to see what he's doing on a regular basis internationally? That would be like my pushback towards it. If anything, this would be I would put Judge at 2, Brunson at 3, Breonna Stewart at 4 if you wanted to go that route, just because when the Yankees get going, all right, Yankees are not just a New York team. We're talking about an international team. Like
no, they're more so than the Knicks, probably an international team. Yeah. And
when the Yankees are hot, everyone knows. Everyone's wearing a Yankee hat, man.
Yeah. I mean, is baseball internet? Well, yeah, we actually saw the World Baseball Classic make the case that baseball's an international game more so than basketball, I would think. I don't know. There's a case. I think Stewie would be my 4. Like I'll go Breonna Stewart 4. Is she the MVP over Asia, by the way?
I'll go that route. I mean, she's legit leading in all categories.
She is. So she's having a Mike Trout kind of year where it's just,
she is like outside of
let me basketball court. She's having a Jokic kind of year.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. Okay.
She is.
All right. So I'll put Stewie at 4. Now number 5 is fascinating. So first of all, we have the same players at 4, just different order. So you're going Aaron Rodgers. Are you sticking with Stewart at 2, Aaron Judge 3, Jalen Brunson 4?
I'll swap it. I'll move Judge up 2. I'll put Brianna at 4 because now that I'm talking myself into it, I could see Judge being 2, Brunson at 3. And even though like let the record show, I gave Breonna Stewart the respect to be number 2 because she's killing it right now. But the thing is like the more we talk about it and we think it from like a world like eyes on view perspective, like WNBA needs to get more eyes. Like I've been tuning in more than I have been in the past this season. But I'm going to say like, if anything, she could be 4 because just like the amount of eyes that you get for like on basketball.
Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm the biggest advocate or at least that I've done a good job as an advocate for the sport. I cannot wait for these WNBA playoffs. That's how top heavy the league is in particular, where you have the Sun, you have the Aces, you have the Liberty. It's also just like, I don't want to turn this into a Dolan Fest or a Dolan Bash Fest, but like letting that team go to Brooklyn is just,
it hurts.
Imagine if these games are being played at the Garden.
Bro, it hurts.
If this team was playing their home games at the Garden,
it hurts.
It would add, like, you want to talk about adding attention to the league, you know?
I used to work at a summer camp for like 6 summers, and every year we'd take. I wasn't part of the older group. I was working with the younger, like the kindergartners, the first graders, second, third graders, all that group. The older kids always went to a Liberty game every summer. I hope they're still doing that, because to watch games like this, and because it was so cheap to go to a Liberty game, that they would just do it for like a field trip. But I hope they're still doing it, man, because Liberty are killing it right now. Like, just give the support in general, though. But yeah.
All right, number 5. Now here's the funny part.
It's tough.
I want to try and give the Giants some credit.
Okay.
They make the playoffs. I have no idea who to put here. I don't look at one player above the rest. I guess Daniel Jones, because he's the quarterback. Saquon, because we're all doing fantasy football drafts, is going in the first and second round in a lot of leagues. Like, the number one face of the Giants, for me at least, is either the coach or the guy whose name I don't know, because Aaron Rodgers doesn't know who he is. Like the guy from Hard Knocks that went after Aaron Rodgers, and then it became a thing. I don't know who you are. He Thanos'd him. I don't even know who you are.
I
think his name is Jihad Ward. I'm not going to pretend that.
I honestly do not care, because and for Giants fans to get very sensitive about the issue, it's okay. It's okay.
Giants fans sensitive? What?
This is okay.
This is where having JD would have been good, because then he could have come with the Giants perspective. But guess what? He's not here. I am either going to put Daniel Jones here or Pete Alonso. Who do you think I should put
Pete Alonso? Not Lindor? You're not thinking Lindor?
So I think Francisco Lindor is outstanding. I also think, to shout out to the 1990s, I also think chicks dig the lawn ball. Like, I think Pete Alonso, being one of the only players ever to have 4 of his first 5 seasons have 35 home runs, to be on pace for like he's on pace for like one of the best power hitting careers if he sticks to the pace that he's on. Then you add in with notoriety, the extension talk that's turned into, are they going to trade him? That they made him available, and he's just putting all of that on the back burner and hitting bombs in the process. I would like, the face of the Mets is Pete Alonso, whereas I think the best player on the Mets is Francisco Lindor.
Okay. I'm going to go with Saquon. I'm going to go with Saquon just because he was the number 2 overall pick. I know Giants fans were really hyped that he's returning. I think Daniel Jones still has to, even though he had an awesome, outstanding season last year. I think there's still more for him to earn the trust of Giants fans. Like, I know that you can go in there being optimistic that he can replicate that same similar season, but with Saquon, at least, like, that this dude is a stud running back. He was taken number 2 overall. Like, I think the hype with him coming back gives more stability to Daniel Jones, not the other way around. So I'm going to go with Saquon at number 5.
I'll go Pete. It's because it's my list. Like, the Mets fan has to put Pete there, Yeah. I will go Daniel Jones at 6 because he's the quarterback. Like, I think the quarterback gets, right or wrong, gets the attention of the team. And as a result, like, I do think, like, everything you said about Saquon is correct, and he probably is going to make my top 10, but I'll go Daniel Jones at number 6. So where do you go at number 6?
I think I'll go with Pete Alonso for all the reasons you noted. Isn't he 3rd right now? And is he 3rd for home runs right now?
In the sport. Yeah.
So
if you go from his rookie season in 2019, he has the most home runs of anybody since he entered the major leagues.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right there is just Pete Alonso.
It's why the idea of trading him is just, it's asinine. Like, I understand you would get a haul for him, and maybe you get a first base prospect in there that turns into Pete Alonso. But you know what's better? Pete Alonso, who's already here and is that person. Like, you already have him. Great. You don't need anybody to try and turn into him. Goodness, the takes that are floating around out there. All right. So I will go. I'm eventually going to need to put a second jet on here, but so I'm at number 7.
Yep.
And I will put, this just became a very tough list. It's got to be honest. Now we're at the point of the list where I'm calculating, because we wanted to try and make this as draft like as possible. But where are you leaning at the moment at 7?
I'm going Sauce Gardner.
You're going Sauce. Oh my God.
I'm going Sauce Gardner. Look, man, I think just the name, he's been all over the place this summer, man. Talk about winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Like, come on. Like, this dude, stud. Look, when they did the promo for Hard Knocks, who they have there in the promo, it's Sauce going against Garrett Wilson. Like, there's a reason for that. I mean, he's getting like, people were attacking him. Like, how good is he as a quarterback? There's that debate going on, like, in Twitter Spaces amongst current NFL players and former NFL players. None shall be named for who played for the Eagles. I don't really care. And the Patriots. We're not going to talk about your name because good Lord, man. Good Lord. You're the one coming out here making these arguments. Please. So I'm going to go Sauce Gardner, man. He's had quite the offseason, quite a stellar rookie career. He was a massive bright spot for the Jets while not Garrett Wilson, but another Wilson was just pooping the bed.
I have no idea who you're talking about. That guy doesn't matter to me anymore. He does not exist in my life at the moment. So
do you see those conversations on Twitter where it's like, oh, look, he's making progress as a quarterback?
I got to be honest. Any complimentary Zach Wilson things that have showed up on my timeline, I've just been like, oh, that's good. I'm glad you're believing. I hope you believe in yourself the way you believe in Zach Wilson, because I see a backup playing against other backups and looking above average, which don't know how much I take of a guy looking above average against backups. You know, I'd rather him look outstanding, so that way I trust him more against starters.
Like, I don't blame, like, people are like, when anyone ever talks about, you know, a player was drafted to this position, they have to be great. I'm like, no. That's not how I look at it. Like, I don't like, just because Zach was drafted at 2, I don't like, it's not his job to be great. However, because the Jets drafted at 2, I expect competent quarterback play from him. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely does. Yeah.
So, like, because the Jets drafted at 2, I can't get hyped for a guy that's looking competent at this stage of his career.
We
Good
can't.
for Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
I hope he does have a career. I would not have taken him at 2. I was more of a Justin Fields guy over Zach Wilson. I'm watching him at BYU. I'm like, this ain't me, man. Like, I cannot get behind this.
We know this as Knicks fans, like, celebrating competence is not like a small feat, but it's like the bare minimum. It's like, oh, great, we're competent. Like, you're grading on that curve.
Thank God you can throw a check down pass now. I've been waiting for this for 2 seasons, man. You should have been able to do that day 1. So it's not like, for him, it's like, I'm sorry that you got drafted too. You probably should have gotten drafted later. But for the Jets, and like, now you're trying to sell me like that our number 2 quarterback is now throwing a check down pass, and like, I got to be hyped for the progress that he's made. It's like, no, I'm not getting hyped for that. Please stop.
I'm gonna go Garrett Wilson instead of Sauce. You'll go the defensive guy. I'll go the offensive rookie of the year. And we'll go that way. So that way you get 2 Jets represented. I'll go Saquon at 8. Saquon, for all the reasons you mentioned. Where do you go at 8? I have a hot take at 9. I think I'll save it.
I think Lindor has to go 8.
So you're going Lindor at 8. Okay.
Yeah.
He is so underrated. Like, I think he should have made the All-Star game the last 2 years. Now, it doesn't matter making the All-Star team, no, but like, the fact that he's 3 years into his Mets tenure is, for my money, he's the best defensive shortstop in baseball. You're getting power numbers out of him. Every advanced metric is in his favor, and he's having another really, really solid season. And there's still so many like, well, you gave him all this money, and they're pointing to the contract, and because he's not carrying you, I don't think people realize. This is not the sport. I think people realize what he's good at. That isn't like, he's so good at literally everything else in a sport that you need more than one person to carry.
Exactly. I was about to say, this is not the sport where it's like, it could be like, even in football, right? You can have like that one guy that like really changes everything, especially if it's the quarterback. But baseball, having one great guy, I mean, do we have to go out to LA and go see what Trout's going through? And it's like, yo, he's a phenomenal baseball player, but like, what?
How about this? Go to his teammate, Shohei Ohtani. Guy's the best baseball player I've ever seen, and he's like, the Angels are going to miss the playoffs again.
Yeah, it's for baseball. It is truly a full on effort. Like, true, all guys got to be on the same page.
Yeah. So you've got Lindor at 8. Here's my hot take.
All right.
I'm going Josh Hart at 9.
Wow.
Yeah. This is
wow.
Looking at
the breast milk conversation really put him up this high, huh? Good Lord.
Listen. So Josh Hart, since he came to the Knicks, they were on a 56 win pace to end the season. Then they dusted the Cavs out in 5 in the first round. They got made quick work of the team that won 50 games, traded for Donovan Mitchell, the number 1 defensive rating in the league, that everybody was saying like, oh, they're a sneaky dark horse team to get to the finals if they could just get through that second round series against the Bucks, which I'll give them a chance to. Nope. What ended up happening? Knicks in 5 because of what Josh Hart has brought to the table. Mitchell Robinson, what he's brought to the table, obviously had a lot to do with it, but the dimension of being able to depend on rebounding from your guard position is outstanding. Then we go to FIBA, and this may be me overrating FIBA, and the complimentary words coming from Steve Kerr about Josh Hart, so much so that he inserted Josh Hart into his starting 5.
The angry Knicks fans are giving you the Arthur fist right now that you have.
And you know what? You can hate on Steve Kerr, the head of Team USA, who agrees with me. I think the addition of Josh Hart and also just it feels right to have the 2 Nova boys on the top 10 list because they're becoming the face of the Knicks at the moment. So yeah, I'll go Josh Hart at number 9.
Okay. Where am I at? What number am I?
You're at 9. You're at 9.
I'm at 9 right now? Okay.
Yeah. You had so Pete Alonso was 6, Sauce Gardner was 7, Francisco Lindor was 8.
Okay. I'm going Daniel Jones.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because now I feel like it's appropriate for him where quarterback, face of the New York Giants, first football team for New York, you know what I mean? Like you gotta put some recognition on him, and like he had a good season last year. Like this is the respect I'll give him for where he should be on the totem pole in New York. Like everyone's going to recognize who he is. I mean, he's Eli's clone at this point. So like now it's just for him to keep carrying on like his good performance from last season.
You think the Giants are going to make the playoffs this year?
I think they can. Yeah.
Do you think they will?
I think they will. I think they will.
Spot. Okay.
Yeah, I think they will.
They have the NFC's.
You want like I hate the NFC East just because it's always a dog mess, man. It is just like it's always like round robin every year. Who's good? Like, but I think the Giants are gonna. I think the Giants will make it. I think if you get a healthy Darren Waller, that makes a big difference.
Guy's gonna have so many targets this year.
He's gonna be fed, man. I hope everyone's taking Darren Waller. Like, not that you shouldn't have in the past because he was that good in Oakland or Las Vegas, just from all the changes, but he's going to get peppered by Daniel Jones this year.
So I have some options at number 10. I've got Sabrina Ionescu of the Liberty. I've got Garrett Cole, who's probably going to win the Cy Young. I've got Francisco Lindor. I think that's it. No disrespect. Sauce Gardner, I guess I should put in that mix too. I just don't feel right about putting 3 Jets on this list.
A lot of Jets.
And I gotta be honest, like this again is me overrating FIBA, but the RJ Barrett hive and the rise of Maple Mamba over there on Team Canada and the clips of the games he's having, although SGA is having a better summer at the moment. I'll put RJ in the conversation too. No disrespect to Julius Randle, but I need to see you play another basketball game before I put you anywhere near it.
Can I take you on a side? I meant to ask you this earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got to ask you this. Julius Randle's injury towards his ankle. How do you weigh that into the equation? Because I think a lot of this offseason has been, I mean, we can give 10 and then we can go into this, but I just want to know your thoughts and opinion on like, how do you weigh that into like the evaluation of Julius Randle?
It's absolutely part of the evaluation. I think because of what happened 2 years ago, it's part of it and not the entire evaluation. Like to just brush off this past postseason, like, well, he got hurt. It's just it's not fair to fully minimize it to that, especially when the effort questions and the defense questions were starting during the regular season before he got hurt. Like if you remember that West Coast trip, that like he has the game against Miami where Bam took his lunch, and that was the game where I filed away like, oh, I'm kind of worried about this if we end up matching up against the Heat in like a 4-5 matchup in the playoffs. Little did I know it was going to be a 5-8 matchup in the second round, but I digress. Then you go to the Clipper game where he has that horrific first half, almost gets ejected in the third. And he had like that stretch where it was like 3 straight games with a technical. And then he gets in Quickly's face, and it's like, all right, what's going on with this dude? And I think Sean with a W said it perfectly that, like, I don't like that with my best player, with one of my best players, I have to wonder what side of the bed he woke up on this morning to know whether or not I'm going to get a good performance. And that is part of the evaluation with Julius Randle. I take his postseason performance for what it was. Like when you look at the numbers, wasn't as bad as you probably thought it was. But then when you actually were in the games and watching it, he was detrimental to a team that was trying to get to the next round of the playoffs. And if he's the one Knick that needed to show up with Jalen Brunson in Game 6, then Jalen Brunson becomes a hero, scoring 40 points to get the Knicks to a Game 7.
1,000%.
And he's made 3 baskets. If he makes 6, which still wouldn't have been a good shooting night, Jalen Brunson is a hero. So I think it's all part of the conversation with Julius. I don't think your team, you want to talk about the Tibbs ceiling. I don't think your Julius Randle ceiling is very high if he's your second best player. I think they're going to make a significant roster change in about a year that will make him your third best player. And then we'll see what Julius does in that type of role when your third best player is Julius Randle. I think your team could actually be pretty good. But we'll see how he adjusts to a role like that. So that's how I take the injury as well as just the entire Julius Randle experience. I hope that answered your question.
No, I think that's perfectly said, because I'm with you, man. Like, I think when you look at, like, I see there's a good portion of Knicks fans that are like, he was injured. You see that he's in a cast, and it's like, first of all, just from like an ankle injury standpoint, it is very difficult to say, like, was that like, let me just say, ankle surgery is very complex. Like, I don't know how much it was impacting his performance. Like, there are situations where you get ankle surgery to remove the scar tissue, so that way it's not as injury prone in the future. So I don't know what type of surgery he has, but I do know that it can go that route where it could have been fine and playable, which it clearly was. He was able to play. And that's my thing. If you're able to play and they clear you, I'm expecting you to perform to some level of degree. So the fact that he was there and he still didn't give like number 2 best player effort or number 2 best player, like, type of production, that doesn't sit right with me. You know what I mean? Like, even when you're injured, like, good players, there's a difference between good and great players. Like, great players, even when they're hurt, figure out how to get it done. All right. Brunson, nagging injuries, he figures out how to get it done, man. That's why I think he's great. That's why I think he's a superstar. Julius Randle's a very good player. And I think for good players, if something goes wrong in whether that's an injury or something, like, they can just easily fall off. And you can see that with RJ. You can see that with Quickly. You can see that with a lot of other players, that if you have that IQ, if you have that greatness in you to understand the game at another level, you know how to work around your injuries and your shortcomings at that time. I just didn't see it. And for me, that one plays for it. Number 2, I was concerned just like you going into the playoffs, because after that Celtics game, I was there for that double OT game. I was like, yo, he looks gassed. Next game against Charlotte, done. Like, he like, you saw that he hung it in early. West Coast trip was not there. You start talking about like the whole Quickly thing and the discussions, and like, even against Orlando, you're like, what is going on here? Right. And even some of the numbers that you see from that point, the last 12 games just before the end of the season, you know, and right before he got hurt, I mean, he's shooting 28.6% from 3. We're talking about shooting 42% from the field. It just went downhill, man. And so for that, like, even though he was averaging 24 points, it was not efficient. Like, still gave you a good solid rebounding, but then his defense started to wane too, like, even worse than it was. Like, and he's not even the best defender. So for me, like, I look at Julius Randle, I'm like, yo, I can't give it a pass like some people are doing. It's there though. I can acknowledge he's a good player. Like, it's not hate. It's just like, I acknowledge like everything that I've seen. It's like, it's just hard for me to say the injury was the end all be all to why he didn't perform this postseason. I think it's much more nuanced than that. And I'm with you, man. I just think it's just very tough just to say the injury was the sole factor for why he wasn't able to perform this postseason.
What's funny is the Cavs series. It was very clear that he's a limited player at the moment, where that's where it showed he was settling for threes a lot more, especially in that game 3, which is why I thought Tibbs, my goodness, the inverse of what Tibbs was in the Cavs series versus
genius against the Cavs.
Going with that lineup in the fourth quarter of game 4 is the best coaching decision he's made since he's been the Knicks head coach. And it's why they were able to win that series. And like benching Julius in the fourth quarter for an OB Grimes, went Grimes and then to RJ, but it was Brunson, RJ Grimes, Hart, OB, Mitch in that fourth quarter. And they were able to pull away with that lead because they weren't like having Julius take those like step back threes from the corner. And it was just like very clear, you got to get him out the game. Like he is a limited player at the moment. And then it was very clear he had no burst. He wasn't able to get around Mobley. And then you get to game 5 where you finally started to see in that first half signs of what we saw during the regular season of the fully realized version, and then it gets hurt again. So I am empathetic to the argument. The things that frustrated me from him in the Heat series were not like you're a limited player. It was decision making. It's like, all right, so you're limited. Stop going one-on-one against Bam Adebayo. You're limited. How about like you just use yourself as a decoy? And here's an idea. Like run, like jog back on defense instead of walk back on defense. If your ankle was so hurt, and this also obviously goes to Tibbs at a certain point, if you're just leaving him out there as a decoy, you have to run the offense through other means as a result, because if one-on-one against Bam Adebayo is a wasted possession, we're now relitigating the Heat series, which is that's how it morphs right now in Knicks land at the moment. Who's your number 10?
Number 10. Oh, man, this is tough.
I'll be honest. I can't go another baseball player. The state of New York baseball does not deserve 2 players on this list.
Man, it's tough because Cole is like killing it right now. But it's
probably going to win the Cy Young. But he like that. My demerit to the state of New York baseball is that for this list you can't have 2 people.
I mean, I have 2 Mets on my list, so I'm gonna go. That's
me at least.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cole. I'm gonna go with Cole at 10, just because potentially Cy Young. He's like it's between him and Aaron Judge at this point. I saw a good GIF on Twitter, and someone's had like Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge right now. It was like, even though it's controversial right now for a certain player, it's Deshaun Watson and JJ Watt on the Texans. And I'm like, in the heyday, yes, it is. Mm-hmm. That is clearly how it feels right now. It's those 2 players and nobody else.
That makes sense in the sense of I get what the conversation. That Texan team was much better than what this Yankee team has been this year. But I get what the conversation is for sure. Yeah. I'll go with Second Liberty. I'll put Sabrina on there at number 10.
Nice.
Just like you said, they're the 2 seed in the league right now. I think they're the 3-1 against the Aces this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So out of respect, I'll put a Second Liberty there. And I got to be honest. So I would go, if we're just like playing it out, I'd go Cole, Lindor, Sauce, RJ in some order after that, if we were going further. But those are our top. Those are our 10. 1 through 10.
No, that makes sense. And I'd probably go Brianna next. I'd probably go Garrett Wilson.
You mean Sabrina? I mean, Sabrina.
Sabrina. Yeah. Sabrina. I go Sabrina, Garrett. I'm just putting Cole up there just because he's doing so well, man. I think Yankee power baseball, like what people are tuning into. Like, even though you can easily be in and out of like Yankee games right now, I just think when you think of like New York, what are eyes on, and a Cy Young winner, like that's always going to gravitate to getting some attention.
Mm-hmm. The hardware of it all, probably
the hardware of it all. Like if he wasn't in Cy Young like recognition, it's easily Sabrina.
So how many before you get to Josh Hart?
I'd probably put Hart at like 15.
You got 15. I thought we were going into the 20s before we get
No. I'll probably put it at 15 just because at this point he has his way. He has his way, not like very good, like not even very good. He's actually an excellent role player. Like let's just call it what it is. Excellent role player. Because he truly embraces what his role is on any team wherever he goes. I think he just has a way, like whatever market he's in just making himself known. And that's really where it comes to this point. Like the whole breast milk conversation, like it's like, okay, national media, we're talking about this because why would you even say something like this, right? Or it's like, look, he makes Twitter world for breaking his keyboard playing video games. I think it was Call of Duty. And it's like stuff like that. He just knows, he just has his way about himself, just like getting that attention and wherever he's at. So I would put him at 15.
Okay. I thank you for obliging my
oh, no problem. I got you.
Josh Hart hot take. Alex, we gotta do this again sometime. Appreciate you making the time to come on KFS. Best wishes to you and the missus. With the newest little Stratocaster that's making their way into your world in the not too distant future. Before you go, please tell everybody, all the fine folks, where they can find you on the internet.
Andrew, thank you for having me on, man. It's a pleasure talking to you. Always enjoy talking sports with you, man. Jets, Knicks, whatever. It's always a great time, man. I love our debates too. I love the spirited debates. Sometimes I just it'll be like at 10 p.m. and I'm just like, oh man, I should get ready to go to sleep right now because there's nothing in season. But it's like I got to get my point in. But no, thank you again, man. Awesome time talking with you. But for all the fine folks out there, you can go find me over at KFTV, man. Knicks Fan TV. We got, obviously the YouTube channel. Go over to Knicks Fan TV, youtube.com/Knicks Fan TV. You can find CP, JD, myself, just breaking down Knicks games, post-game, game previews, as Andrew does over here at KFS. You can find JD doing play-by-plays as well. We got a lot of stuff going on over there. And also you can go check out KnicksFanTV.com because we got some good writers, solid writers. Make sure you support the website. And yeah, if you want to follow me personally, you can follow the handle if you're watching on the YouTube channel, which you should be doing for KFS. Come on. Help out. Come on, man. Be tuned into these videos, man. Watch the YouTube channel for KFS. Support them. And you see it right there. It's at Stratocaster right here. This is this name right here. So you can find that on all social media platforms. Stratocaster
101 to be specific. You got to make sure. 101. Is your birthday 10/1?
It is October, but no, actually, I just chose 101 because when I made it, it was like, you take an intro level course, it's like, oh, 101.
Yeah. And now you can't get rid of it because
now I just can't get rid of it.
Can I be honest? That's why it's stupid underscore is next to my Twitter name too. It's why I can't get rid of it now. And Andrew J. Claudio's taken. But if I want to change it to anything else, you know what? Nope. Andrew J. Claudio underscore. Thankfully, I don't identify by it, but I know the feeling of well, it's too late now. I can't switch it to anything else. So.
Yeah, it's on all platforms too. Even when I play video games, it's the same thing. I'm like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
Make it easy for everybody.
Alex, best wishes to you and the wife, all right, man?
Appreciate you, man. And congratulations once again on you and your nuptials. Married life, hopefully, it's not changing too much, man, because that's how you know it's great.
Yes, exactly.